continues the story with the drug-dealing Barksdale crew and the Baltimore Police Department, who featured in season 1. While continuing the series' central themes of dysfunctional institutions and societal effects of the drug trade, the second season also explores the decline of the American working class. Yes, Jesse, the loss of the American dream. We used to make shit in this country. Now we just stick our hands in other people's pockets.
That's right.
And the hardship its members endure during the transition from an industrial to post-industrial society. You know, I wrote about that, and I actually used that. Yeah, I wrote about this. I wrote about I took that line. We used to make shit in this country. For when 401 Mania had a politics page, my dad and I would co-author some pieces. Like, we would sit down and we would do some research. We would grab data. And I challenged the notion that Frank Sabatka posits in the show, and that is the loss of manufacturing jobs leading to the death of the American working class. And what I was specifically dealing with was the notion that NAFTA and then later GATT, sending manufacturing jobs to India, China, Mexico, etc., caused the loss of jobs, which then caused the collapse of the working class and all of that. And my dad and I did sort of a Freakonomics kind of a thing where we found that manufacturing has gone up in the United States. You know what went down? The amount of jobs for manufacturing that needed to be done by people.
Robots. Yeah, buddy.
Machines, robots, mechanization. It's not that we're making less stuff in this country, as I would find out, and I would talk about in the article that I wrote. It was that they didn't need as many people to make it anymore. Right. A lot of the stuff was being automated. This actually came up in a story I had heard about Ford Motor Cars, where Ford was like showing I think Germans his auto plant. And he was like, oh, we have the machine that does this, and we have the machine that does this. And the Germans finally asked, okay, well, how many of these machines are going to buy cars?
Right.
So therein lies the pickle. And that is what season 2 of The Wire deals with.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at a struggling family that, when you look at Frank specifically, we definitely change our setting. We're not in the pit all the time here during this season. We're hanging out with Frank.
We're not even really dealing with the Barksdale organization as such.
Hardly at all.
Yeah, we're kind of dealing with the fallout from D'Angelo going to prison and then Avon going to prison, and and then Stringer having to kind of hold things together with poor quality drugs.
Right.
But that's like a C story in this.
Yeah. I mean, it's related in somewhat because Proposition Joe is using some of the drugs from the Greek, but I mean, that's definitely not the focus this time. We are focusing on this family who is trying to, the Sabatkas, who are pretty much run afoul. This all starts because Frank pissed off Valchek by getting the window in the church. And really, I thought about this as I was watching this season. Frank, who is he's an honest working man, except for the fact that he's bringing in some, he's kind of letting some things slide. We'll say order.
He's not bringing it in; he's allowing it to happen. So I'll set this up. So the criminal organization run by the Greek is paying Frank to allow cans, cargo containers filled with drugs, chemicals, and women to pass through the port for pickup by by Sergey, not Boris.
Not Boris.
Not Boris, Sergey. To be picked up by Sergey Boris? to be either brought to a warehouse for fencing, or not like sword fencing, like giving, dealing in stolen property fencing.
Right.
Or, to the strip clubs and rings of prostitution for the women, or to prop Joe or whoever for the drugs. And so what they do is they pay Frank, they give him the number, he gets Horseface to do it up for him, and then Horseface gets the can to Sergey. Sergey takes it off the port, and this is all running smoothly until one fine day, there's an issue with a can full of women prostitutes from the Russian part of the world, I believe, and one of them gets thrown overboard when she fights back. When she does, when one of the sailormen gets a little handsy, she gets killed and thrown overboard. And then to keep the other women from talking about it, they are all suffocated and killed in the can. That can is then lost in the port, in the stacks, as they say. And that can is then found by port authority police officer Beatty.
Right.
And so they find like a dozen dead girls. And so
14.
Now they have this, 14.
There's a total of 14 because it's 14 homicides that lands on the plate of Rawls.
Indirectly,
and,
yes.
Yeah.
And
that's all because of McNulty's doing on purpose. He stiffs them with them, but go ahead.
Right. So we have the issue of we have 14 dead girls, right? We have the floater that McNulty finds, and McNulty, as we saw in season 1, was sent off to the harbor patrol. He's riding the boat, which is where he did not want to go.
He did not want to go.
These are for you, McNulty. These are for you. Right in your eye. And so he's off on the boat, and he's the one that finds the floater. And while they are able to sell that the floater went in the water on like Balmer County side, using
does
tides,
he do some work?
Yeah,
does he do some work to get this one, man?
Yeah, he's like sea tides and all this other stuff, and then he's able to prove that the body went in the water on the city side.
Right.
He throws his desk out the window. But as you were saying, because the Greek is paying Frank to get the cans off the port, they are using that money to lobby, I think it's Annapolis, to dredge the canal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then do something else with the port so they can allow more ships in. More ships is more work. More work is better for everyone else. But there's a lot of lobbying that... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of it to kind of also shine a little bit more of a light on Frank. Frank is allowing this to happen, but, when he finds out that there's these girls that are involved, clearly he's worried about himself, but he also, I think there's a sense of, like, he doesn't want that kind of business going on.
Vonda says to him, like, you never wanted to know before. Now you want to know? And then he kind of like makes fun of him for it. He's like, guns, bombs, whores.
Right.
What difference does it make?
Right.
Like, and Frank's like, when I didn't want to know because I just needed the money. I don't really want to be involved in all of this. On the other hand,
it's not like
if something's living in there, I don't want more dead people. Like Frank is not amoral necessarily. He's desperate.
Yeah, it's not like he's taking this money and just, piling in and living lavishly. He's taking this money, just like you said, to help actually his union.
Right.
In order to bring more jobs in there and help his union thrive, and trying to get, obviously with the union, you got politics you got to worry about. And with politics comes the money. And so that's where he was devoting most of this cash to, is to just try and keep people afloat that he felt very responsible for.
He's trying to save his union. He's trying to save his union. He's trying to save the lives of his family, that are invested in being stevedores, and work is drying up. There's not as many boats anymore. And this is what goes to the whole like manufacturing thing. They're not. There used to be a place in this country for people with low to no education to be able to find jobs that would be able to support their families.
Right.
The world changed. Technology prevailed. You now have to have an education of some kind, whether it's trade or, traditional, and you have to go out and seek work and it's harder and harder. It's harder and harder for the, average person to have the resources and get the jobs to support the families. And it's not like anyone was telling them that this was happening. It just sort of happens over time. And so people go through life thinking what is now is forever.
Right.
And the unions and manufacturing jobs and day labor and all that other stuff will be around forever. We'll always have these things. People, when I drove a truck briefly, I drove an 18-wheeler in between social work gigs for a very brief period of time, like only a few months. And I remember like the sales pitch was, people are always going to need stuff. People are always going to need stuff. And there's no way to get the cargo from one place to another without trucks. Of course, now we have robot-controlled trucks.
Right.
That's the setup here. Is essentially we have the murder investigation of the 14 prostitutes, and then this is the point that I was getting to, and then we can kind of kick the ball around. Frank is hoarding all of this money that he's getting from the Greek so that he can use it to lobby and get stuff done on the port to create more jobs. However, he takes a little bit. He lets himself go a little bit. He does it twice in the season. One time it's to buy a truck, and that's Vaughn just like, do something nice with the money for once. Like, you're just sitting on all this cash that we're giving you. Go buy something that you really like. And he buys a truck. Doesn't have it very long, but he does buy one. But the other thing he does at the very beginning of the season, and this is what you were talking about, is he buys a place for a window, a stained glass window of like stevedores, and that's the window that Valchek wants.
Oh, yeah.
And Valchek is one of the majors. He's Przebylewski's father-in-law. And he got a whole bunch of stained glass windows, and he wanted them like all over the church, and he wanted the main window, and Frank had already gotten to it. And he's like, how did he pay for this window? With what? These people don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of.
Right.
And so for a person as Valchek is, he's like, there's no way. There has to be a reason they have all this extra dough. And it's so funny. And I'll kick this ball to you to answer, and then we can go wherever. Had Frank not had just a little bit of vanity, just that little bit of vanity, that vanity that we all have, just a little attention. No big deal. It's just a window. It's just a window. Had he not done that, had he stayed the course and just used the money for lobbying, none of this would have happened. If Woody had gone to the police, this would have never have happened.
Right. I mean, yeah, we watch this war that Valchek rages against Frank, and it kind of, I mean, they're both getting at each other. We got the stained glass thing, and then immediately like, okay, Valchek's like, what's going on? Put a detail together, and Frank Sabatka, I wanted all the dirt, and I want this guy hauled in. And then because he's
the one in the corner, I love that line. When he goes to check on him later, and he's like, what the hell?
Yeah, like they sit there and go through like 10 minutes of what they've got, and not one time did Frank's name come up. And he was so pissed. But then of course you got Frank, who's egging it on when they I should say, I think it's Horseface that goes and does it. I don't know. Frank's got to be aware of what's going on, but anyway, Horseface steals the detail van from he
steals the surveillance van,
and they throw that into a can and send it all around the world. Basically, I think it ends up finally in Australia. So these two guys are going at it, but yeah, because of that one thing, that just like you said, that bit of vanity, it snowballed into this target on his back. Granted, I don't know where we would be because of, we still end up with the 14 murders or I should say the 14, the 14 bodies that end up on. But
let me stop you there, because this has become like my favorite season of the 5, I think.
Really?
I think it's season 3, then season 2, then season 1, then season 5, then season 4. Gotcha. Season 4 is like my least favorite season. But I used to not like this season very much at all, because this starts off really, really slow. Their investigation goes nowhere in circles for like 4 or 5 episodes. And it doesn't really start to have any cohesion. And there's a lot of like rinse and repeat. So Daniels is in the basement. He's in evidence control. And he's trying to get out of the basement. And so Valchek, through Przebylewski, is like, you want a detail, Daniels is your man. That's your lieutenant. They'll put a team together. We'll solve this case for you. Okay? This is separate from the murders. The murders are strictly in homicide. And so you have Bunk and Lester, who are teamed up with Beatty, and they're tasked with solving the murder of the dead 14 prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Daniels, who's tasked with, why does Frank Sabatka have so much money? Where do you get it from? What's he doing?
Mm-hmm.
And they are both hunting the same target unknowingly.
Right.
And so a lot of this season is, one, Daniel's like, I want to make the case that's there to make so that I can get out from the basement and I can have a major case squad assigned to me. I want to keep this crew together of Kima and Herc and Carver and whoever else they had. And I want to keep us together as a major case unit. And then you have the homicide unit that's like running in circles, can't get any evidence together to figure out who killed the girls. And there's a lot of Daniels do X. No, this is the point that I'm getting to. No, if I take the dead girls and I don't solve it, I look like crap and I don't get my major case unit.
Right.
There's a lot of like give and take with him and his wife Marla about, I'm playing the game for myself this time. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of like the homicide unit going, these are your murders. These are the same people. It's the same case. Bunk makes that case. Lester makes that case. Rawls, such son of a bitch that he is, makes that case. And Daniels is like, la, la, la. I was told bring in a stevedore, not a whole murder invest. Like it takes fucking forever to get to a place where things start to move. And like I said, it's 4 or 5 episodes in before they finally fold the murders into, like, first it's just, you can just set up here and we can share information, but I'm not folding your murders into my case against Sabatka. And then they're like, it's the same case, you asshole. This over and over and over again. To the point where like I get impatient with it. But the point that I'm really getting to is the season doesn't really start to move until they start sharing evidence together. And really it's not until they clone the computer. When they clone they're going nowhere fast. And Bunk has a conversation with Beatty about, you're only as good as your CI. Is there anyone down there that you can talk to? Beatty used to date Maui. And can we just talk about this for a second? How manipulative fucking Beatty was.
Oh,
because think about that. That
was rough, man. I mean, he was totally like ready for her to come in, sit down and have a beer. And she's like, I mean, I'll give her enough credit to be open and honest and be like, well, let's go meet and have a coffee. And then he knew at that point, oh, okay, well, this is more along the lines of,
boy, it's not like women use men at all. I mean, it's not like women would fake interest in a guy to get something out of him.
Now, I have a problem with that. That is a grasshopper. That does not look like a cricket, by the way.
That's your fucking takeaway from my budding sarcasm?
Yeah, that is unless that's a green cricket, which I've never seen. There could be some, but I've never seen a green cricket in my life.
It says cricket sound effects, no copyright.
Yeah, well, okay, sure. It does sound like a cricket, but that ain't a picture of a cricket, man. That looks like a grasshopper.
This will be the fucking TikTok clip. Us arguing over, because you know what? Speaking of women who use people, my wife
right now.
She
take my wife, please.
She actually argued that. I think it was like on the Downton Abbey show where she was, or it was either that or 50 Shades, where she was like, "That's not really a cricket, though." And I'm like, "Oh my god, people! That's what I found on YouTube. Leave me alone."
The great green bush cricket. So apparently it does.
There you go.
There is
all
such
of
a thing.
Suck it. Suck it.
Yes, Beatty. Back to Beatty.
Yes. She started out as shit, but now she got game. As they say towards the end. Anyway, she totally uses Maui. And Maui, being sweet on her still.
Oh, yeah.
But also of guilty conscience. Let's not completely throw this at the feet of Beatty. He wants a degree of justice for the girls in the can.
True.
He knows something is rotten in the state of Denmark, and so it's half Beatty and half his own conscience, and he tells her all the information you're looking for is in the computer. And it's when they clone the computer and they're able to figure out the pattern that whenever Horseface is working, it's the Atlantic Light. That's when, they're bringing in the contraband. Yeah. And that's when the investigation really starts to take off. That, all this time, like they're also doing like hand to hands, but they even say in one of the episodes, Kima and all them, they're like, we're buying a lot of drugs, but we're not getting off the street. Really, we're not really getting to anyone. We're not finding any lieutenants. I think without the wiretap and without the clone computer, they never get further up than like White Mike, who has the funniest line in this. He has the Weebay line in this season, and can I tell you how many times I've said this? Let me get 2 hot dogs and a strawberry soda. Does it have to be strawberry? Hook a brother up. White Mike.
Yeah, and McNulty's like, I'll fuck the order up. It's like 3 things, McNulty. For fuck's sake, man.
No, he has to tell a woman to go to big old lesbian woman.
I'll fuck the order up. Come on, dude.
Go get him his hot dogs, bitch. Anyway, I have since learned to love this season. It's so good. It's so
interesting
resonant.
Because I came in.
It's like really self-contained. Like
I thought for sure that you wouldn't be a fan of this because just like you said, it's a departure from what we are usually getting. But yes, self-contained.
That's one of the things I've come to love about it. At first I didn't. Because like 1 and 3 are kind of part 1 and part 2 of the same story. Part 3 really, season 3 rather, really is the second half of season 1 in terms of the rise and fall of the Barksdale organization.
Mm-hmm.
Seasons 4 and 5 are the what's his Marlowe, the Stansfield. It's the rise and fall of the Stansfield operation.
Yep.
Season 2 kind of stands alone. It mostly on the drug side. It mostly deals with Prop Joe. It somewhat deals with Omar. Somewhat deals with Avon and D'Angelo and the falling out from season 1. But mostly deals with the port.